Morning, Tony. Thanks for joining me again. And can we start with an introduction?
Hello there, Paul. Hi, everybody. My name is Tony Jones, and I head up a platform DevOps department.
Great. So today, what I'd like to talk to you about is something that I think is interesting, because vendors of any kind of solution, when asked by prospective purchasers, how good is it? Do you ever have problems? So first of all, do we get problems?
We do. In actual fact, our process is very much set up from an issue perspective to think about this from a customer point of view. Any issue, whether it is affecting a customer or a potential threat to service, is handled in exactly the same way. So we would handle an incident, whether it is impacting service or a potential threat to service, and it goes onto the conveyor belt from our perspective in exactly the same way.
Okay, so given we have incidents, then is there a process to learn from them? Is there a process to stop them happening again?
Very much so. Very much in our ethos, whether it has impacted customer service or, say, if it's not, once it's on the conveyor belt, the process is exactly the same. So a process of learning, sometimes that might be called a post-mortem or a 5 whys, but the process is very much the same. It's about trying to get to the root cause, really understanding what happened and how we can avoid that happening again. Actions would come from that, learnings would come from that, but the process is to get to the root cause to prevent that happening again.
And obviously I've heard of 5 whys, but not everybody might have done. And just tell me a little bit about that. And, I don't know if I've experienced the process that you undertake, but you've got that whole rather joke. So why, and rather childlike, because children is what they keep saying. But why? Go and do that. Why? So just expand a little bit on what happens in a 5 whys and why 5. And I mean, I don't know whether we could practice one, but yeah, take me through a 5 whys.
Yeah, I mean, it's called 5 whys. The idea is to ask as many whys to get to the root cause, so that the root cause is fully understood. So why was there a problem? Why was that specific issue? Why was maybe that set up in a particular way? So the whys keep going to get to the root cause. Along the way, you will have threads, and we come back to those threads to make sure that through the whole process, all of those are answered. So the whole process is really designed to get to the root cause, to capture the learnings, to capture the actions. From that, there will be a timeline. There will be a deeper understanding of what happened. Those actions are then captured. They become work that will flow into the teams. But most importantly, we then want to share those learnings across the department, across the business. So the whole process is geared around trying to make sure that that does not happen again.
Okay, so question: do you always have to have 5 whys? Could you have 7? I mean,
yeah, it's a good question. So as many as is required to get to the root cause. So actually, maybe that might be 2. It really doesn't matter. It's called a 5 whys, but really the art of it is getting to the root cause, really understanding the root cause. So to answer your question, as many whys as is required in order to get to the root cause.
And I imagine actually there's books on this, and maybe once we post this on LinkedIn, you could put a link to a book on 5 whys. But I mean, I imagine the process around it, do you get a moderator? Does people have to be instructed when they come in to stop? Don't use it as an excuse to just throw mud or blame people. Do you care about that? Are you looking for fault in individuals or what?
It's a good question. So the people there are wide-ranging. So the people involved in solving that incident, people who could really help. We step through the timeline. We have an understanding that people did the best that they could possibly do, given the circumstances, given the information that they held. So very much not about blame, really about understanding and learning about the process, how we can improve from this point forward. Can be big teams of people. So especially for things that are more complex, you may find that multiple people are there, but very much a no blame culture. It is very much about looking at the process, about helping to understand the root cause and moving forward. And we want people to be open. One of the problems about blame is that people can close up, and it needs to be an open, collaborative environment. And that's very much our ethos.
Okay, so, and I've actually read some books on this subject. There's a famous book, maybe I'll put a link in the comments too, from a well-known author who talks about the difference between the way the aviation industry had a blameless culture where there was no fear. Pilots, co-pilots, navigators, whoever, staff could go, we had a near miss, and this was the problem. And that information is actually shared across the airline industry. And that resulted in fewer and fewer accidents, especially given the volume of flying as was pre-pandemic. Quite an amazing set of improvements because there's a no blame, no fear culture. And that's the opposite sort of example given is one of hospitals where there's a culture of blame, there's a culture of suing, you know, a lot of budgets are there for litigation, and medical staff might end up, not saying all, and apologize if you're in the medicine industry and you disagree, but because of that culture of society wanting to blame their doctor, there's a resistance to then admitting a fault and opening up because they're just worried about their purse and the dollars instead. There's a whole book written on that. So I applaud an environment where there's no fear. And in fact, you can almost go further and say we want failure, because if every failure is associated with a process like a 5 whys, to then put a systemic, I mean, is that right, Tony? If you think about, you know, failure often comes down to people, and rather the process is not complete. Why? Well, somebody didn't understand that would ever happen. A human has got to complete a process, add a piece to it, and then if we will execute the process properly, we fix it until it breaks somewhere else. That if there's no fear, I mean, are people, supposing a fault happens and nobody spots it, do people sit there and go, phew, that's lucky, I won't mention it? Or do you get people coming to you, Tony, and your team saying, hey, Tony, we had a near disaster, it didn't matter, but I want to share it with you? So do people even put their hands up to things that aren't spotted?
Absolutely. I mean, we actively encourage the learning. So if it's something that didn't impact customers, if it was reduced resilience, services were still running absolutely fine, we still want to go through exactly the same process. So in terms of completing that, the learnings, the actions, then all of the process is exactly the same. Sometimes it could be as small as just a few people within one individual team. It might be across a handful of teams, but the process does not change. And that's the beauty of it in terms of getting to the root cause, really understanding what happened. And as I say, whether that is a reduction in resilience, didn't impact customers, doesn't matter from our point of view, the process would be exactly the same.
I've heard you talk about something called repair, but I don't understand what that is other than the acronym. So just tell me in about 30 seconds, tell me about repair.
Sure. So in a situation, you want this to be in people's DNA. So something that's very easy to remember. So repair is recover, extend the group. So very much in the heart of an incident, acting as quickly as you possibly can with the right people to solve the issue. P is for process improvement. A is for advocate learnings. I is for incident report out, and R is for resolution. So repair is a process that we go through so that each of those steps, the value is really understood, that those steps are completed in sequence. So process improvement is about the 5 whys that we've just spoken about. Advocating the learnings is about sharing that information. Incident report, collecting the information and making sure that we share that with our customers and people that need to be aware. And then resolution is about the metrics and making sure that we take those metrics for things like SLA. So that's what repair means.
Fabulous, Tony. Always great to catch up.
You too, Paul. Thank you.